happy Chanukah to everyone. It's very important to remember that the Arizal says that every Yontif is not only that we commemorate the great miracles that happened at that day, but it happens again every year at the exact time that it happened the first time. The revelation that took place the first Chanukah happens again every year when it comes Chanukah, and it's even stronger than ever before. So by observing the mitzvahs of Chanukah, that is the way we could tune in to the energy, to the revelation that comes on this Yontif. So we need to learn about the Yontif to appreciate what is going on today, what is happening now in this special Yontif of Chanukah. Every Yontif in the Jewish calendar is unique. Every Yontif has something special that no other Yontif has. And from each and every Yontif, we take with us that energy, that unique energy for the till next year at this time. The Yontif of Chanukah, as we all know, although there were really two miracles that happened, two major miracles. The miracle that the Jewish people won this war. The Jewish people were really just a very small group of people who are fighting a major army. And a tremendous miracle happened. And we say in Al-Hanissim that although we were few, and yet we were able to win this war. So that's one major miracle that happened. And we celebrate this by saying Al-Hanissim and saying Hallel. And then there is another miracle, of course, that we all know, that when the Yidden, after they were victorious, and the Greek Syrians destroyed everything that was going on in the Beis HaMikdash, they also tried to get rid of all the special oil that was needed for the menorah. They wanted also, so what did they do? They defied all the oil. So the oil can't be used. And the Eibishter made this incredible miracle that one jar of intact, pure oil was found. And with this jar of oil, they were not only be able to light for one day, but they were able to light the menorah for 8 days. So it were two miracles. However, in the Gemara, when the Gemara asks, on which miracle was the Chachamim Kaiveya Ayantif? The answer is, it's about the menorah, which is very interesting. You would think, let's celebrate both things. Why does the Gemara single out and only speak about the oil and the miracle of the oil, finding of the oil? Because as we're going to, Mr. Shem, talk today, being that the war was really all about spirituality. As it says in the Medrash, that the Greek Syrians said to the Jews, if you only will declare that you no longer have any connection to the Jewish religion, we won't have the war. So obviously, although of course there was a tremendous victory, but what was the whole war about? It was about spirituality, as we're going to soon talk about. And being that that is the most important thing, to God forbid, the whole religion was in jeopardy if they would, God forbid, win. So compared to the having the religion back, even the fact that we won the war is secondary to the more important part, that the Jewish religion was freed, and we now, and from then on, we could still keep Torah mitzvahs in the way that the Yidden kept it at that time, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So again, being that the whole war was about Ruchnius, not about that they were just anti-Semites and wanted to get rid of the Jews, God forbid, that was really what happened on Purim. Haman wanted to get rid of the Jewish body, but in the time of Chanukah, the issue was the Jewish religion, not the Jewish body. So we celebrate Dafka with a menorah, which in general, Torah and mitzvahs are compared to the fire, the wick, and the oil, and the fire. As the Torah says, as there's a pasuk, kineh mitzvah v'Torah, or Torah and mitzvahs are compared to the oil, the wick, and the wick and the jar. All together, that's what Torah and mitzvahs are. However, although the Gemara says that the main miracle is about the jar of oil, but we do have, it says, brought down in the Shulchan Aruch, that we do try to also have celebrations. We make some kind of a celebration also, but mainly it's about the menorah and about the miracle of finding the jar of oil. So let's try to understand a little deeper how Hasidus understands the whole issue that the Greek Syrians were fighting about. The Greek Syrians were really very much into philosophy. Everything in those days, everything was about understanding and understanding science, philosophy. And what irritated them about the Jewish religion is that the Yidden are observing mitzvahs not because of the rationale of the ideas of Judaism, but rather Jews observe Yiddishkeit because it's godly, because God said so, and God is beyond logic and beyond any rationale. So if we to understand which mitzvahs were they really irritated about, was the chukim, the mitzvahs in the Torah that we don't have any idea of why Hashem said so. A classical example are the laws of purity and impurity. Purity does not mean clean. It has nothing to do with cleanliness. It's a spiritual kind of purity, and contamination and purity is totally illogical. That's one of the classical examples of chukim. According to Rashi, even not to wear shatnez. We don't wear something, a garment that's made out of wool and linen. Rashi considers this a chok. Not eating meat and milk, according to Rashi, is a chok. Why? Milk is okay, meat if it's kosher is okay, but meat and milk together is not okay. We have many mitzvahs that are chukim. And if we read carefully the prayer that we say on Chanukah in Al Hanissim, we say that the Yevonim wanted to get rid of chukei ritzaynecha. The chukim is what they were really so irritated. You are believing in things that don't have any rhyme or reason. Also, the way Yidden learn Torah. Torah, everyone knows that Torah is so beautiful with so many explanations, so deep and yet a Yid learns Torah not because of the beautiful ideas, it's because it's God's Torah. It's infinitely more than anything that we understand. Torah is godly. And if we look again into the prayers of Al Hanissim, it says that the Greeks wanted to take away the way we learn Torah. It's Torah Sechar. They just learn Torah as a philosophical book, no problem. But the Jews learn Torah in a whole different way. The respect, the awe of what Torah is to a Jew. This is God's Torah. It's God in it. That's what they couldn't stand. And because of that, they wanted to get rid of the Jews because of what they believe in. Interesting to note that the story that we all know, that the Greek Syrians tried to contaminate all the oil, all the jars of oil that were in the Beis HaMikdash. You get to think of it, why do they have to contaminate it? It takes much longer. They could have just throw out all the jars and no more oil for the Yid, no menorah. Can't use the menorah, there's no oil. But the answer is that's exactly what they had intention. They wanted to contaminate the oil. Because the Jews believe in things that are beyond logic. It's the same oil, same everything. But you are not going to use it because it's contaminated. You believe in such things that do not make any sense. So they purposely contaminated the oil, not getting rid of the oil. So what happened? Being that the Jewish religion was at stake, the heart, the soul of the Jewish religion was really what was the issue here. They made a war which had no logic, no way that they could win this war. How could a handful of people have a war with a mighty nation with thousands, hundreds of thousands of soldiers? It wasn't about logic. It was about, it got to the essence of their soul. We cannot let this happen. And they had Mesiris Nefesh beyond the letter of the law, because there's no law in the Torah that you have to make a war that there's no chance that you're going to win. No such law that you have to go on such a war. It wasn't about, they did to to fulfill a command. It was something beyond all that. This cannot happen, and whatever it takes, we're gonna give up our lives. This will not happen. So if that's the case, then we have to understand that because the Yidden, it reached to their essence, they also reached to Hashem's essence. And supernatural miracles happened. And that's how they won the war. When a Yid brings out his essence, he reaches Hashem's essence. And let's go on and see how we could see the greatness, the uniqueness of Chanukah over all the Yom Tovim. There are several very strong questions that perhaps you thought about, or perhaps your children might ask you, and really needs answers. How did they light the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash? They lit the Beis HaMikdash menorah. Number one was made out of 7 staves, not 8, but 7. They lit the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash by day, in the afternoon. What do? We light the menorah purposely when it's dark. It says clearly in the Shulchan Aruch and the Gemara that you're supposed to light the menorah mishetishka hachama, when the sun goes down. Why? In the Beis HaMikdash, you had to light it before the sun went down. So why are we lighting it dafke when the sun is down? Sunset. Question number 2. The menorah that we light says in the Shulchan Aruch that you place it, the mezuzah is on the right, and the menorah is on the left side of the door. Why left? All mitzvahs are always right. Suddenly, a new thing, left. Make sure to remember, mezuzah on the right, menorah on the left. Why left? In the Beis HaMikdash, it wasn't left. Why do we light the menorah here on the left? Next question. Where are we supposed to put the menorah? Originally, says the Gemara, you take the menorah and you place it outside, toward the public domain. In the words of the Gemara, Pesach Beisai, by your door, Mibachutz, the outside of your door. The outside, basically outside. Why outside? The Beis HaMikdash menorah was inside. The Beis HaMikdash had 3 sections. There was the Kodesh HaKadoshim, Holy of Holy. The next room was the Kodesh. And the Kodesh was the place where there was the holy menorah, the holy shulchan, and the holy mizbeach, the golden mizbeach. That was in Kodesh. The 3rd section was called the Azara. It was like a courtyard without a roof. But the menorah was inside. And here we're supposed to be commemorating the whole idea of the menorah, and we do everything differently. We light the menorah outside, we make it left, and we start off when it's sundown. Why all these differences? And then there is another very strong question. How long is the menorah supposed to burn? Minimum a half an hour. If you look in the Gemara says something very unusual. How long does the menorah supposed to be lit? From sundown till you do not see the legs of the Talmudites. Who in the world are they? So Rashi explains that there was a certain gypsies that were called Talmudites, and they surfaced. As soon as it was sundown, they came out and sold matches. Who knows about the Talmudites? Where the Gemara is written for all generations. So how long did the Talmudites hang out? A half an hour. So why can't the Gemara just say half hour? What does the Gemara say? No, from when the sun down till you can't see the legs of the Talmudites. What is this long Megillah all about? And we're going to talk about this soon. There'll be one answer to all of these questions. But let's go back to the basic menorah. The menorah in the Beis HaMikdash was 7 staves. The menorah that we have is 8. Now, of course, the reason that we light a menorah of 8 is because the miracle lasted for 8 days. And therefore, we light a menorah of 8. Although in the Beis HaMikdash, the menorah was 7. But that cannot be the whole full answer of why we light a menorah of 8. Because Hashem could have made that the miracle should be for 7 days and we'll have a menorah for 7. Because the menorah was 7. Why is it that the menorah ends up to be different than the menorah of the Beis HaMikdash, which is very obvious that it's different than the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash? So let's start by understanding the number 8. In Jewish mysticism, in Kabbalah, the number 8 is a very special number. The difference between 7 and 8 is an infinite difference. 7 represents the 7 days of the week. And why does a week have 7 days? Because Hashem created the world with his 7 emotions. Every day represents another emotion, like kindness is for Sunday, Gevura is Monday, mercy is Tuesday. Every day of the week is a different attribute. So the cycle of the world, everything about the world is made up of 7. Number 8, it's not just one more than 7. The difference is from 8 means infinity, beyond the limits of all worlds. Because the Yidden had such great Mesiras Nefesh, they reached Hashem as he is infinite, the number 8. And because it's 8, we have the koach to do things that the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash could not do. Could you imagine? Beis HaMikdash's menorah still couldn't do what our menorah today could do. The menorah in the Beis HaMikdash did not have the power to change the darkness of the world. It could only add light to the light and holiness of the Beis Hamikdash. But to illuminate the dark world, that takes an infinite light. And that's really the menorah. So that's why we dafka light the menorah when it's dark. Because that's the whole point. We have the ability to convert darkness into light, which is much greater than just adding light to an already bright situation. That is why we light on the left. Left represents the opposite of Kedusha. Everything always, right represents Kedusha, left represents the opposite. But the menorah has the ability, the light of the menorah, to change the left. And that's why we dafka light it at the left. And we dafka light it outside. Not like in the Beis Hamikdash, we lit it inside. Because the outside represents the whole world to God is really called a private domain. It's the whole world is his, and it's private, it belongs all to him. What does outside world represent? The outside of that awareness, the outside of that consciousness. But Chanukah, we dafke light it toward the outside because we have the ability to change the outside. So things are now starting to be all answered with this one question, with one answer. Chanukah represents infinity. And with infinity, there's no limits. You not only could add light and more light and more light, no, you could even turn darkness into light. Shlomo HaMelech in the Keheles says something very unusual. He writes, Vera'isi, and I realized that there is an advantage of chachma over silliness, like the advantage of light over darkness. What in the world is he saying here? You don't need to be Shlomo HaMelech and to realize, I realize that light is greater than darkness, or chachma is better than narishkeit. What is he saying over here? And he makes an introduction. Vera'isi, I realized. Chassidic says that is not what Shlomo HaMelech meant. Shlomo HaMelech said, I realized that when you take things that seem silly and you turn them into chachma, that is a tremendous accomplishment. Or when you take light, a darkness, and from darkness you make light, not lightness over darkness, lightness from darkness. You take darkness and you turn it into light. Wow, that is the greatest light that can be. And that is Chanukah. Chanukah gives us something special that no yontif has. No yontif represents changing the outside, changing the darkness, changing the left. But Chanukah does. The menorah does. It's important to explain that the Mesiris Nefesh that the Yidden had to find, to light with a jar of oil and not compromise was really not an obligation. Because according to the Shulchan Aruch, you are allowed, if the whole Jewish nation are in a state of impurity, you could light even when impure, you could still light a menorah. Because there is a law that if everyone is impure, Tumah gets pushed away from the tzibur. If the whole tzibur is tamei, it's okay. But the Yidden were not interested in just it's okay. They wanted the best and the purest. So everything about Chanukah is beyond the law, beyond the requirement. That's really Chanukah. Now there's one more point. Maybe there's more than one point, but one more point on this, and then we'll go back to the main point. There's something about the Chanukah light, the oil, that is much deeper than what we imagine. Many commentaries ask the very famous question. The Beis Yosef, the one who wrote the Shulchan Aruch, asks this question: why is there a miracle of 8 days when there was enough one jar, but for that jar was enough for 1 day? So the miracle really should have been for 7 days, but for the first day, they had already enough. So why are we celebrating 8 days? And there's answers. There is a sefer that gives, I think, 70 or a tremendous amount of answers on this question. However, with all the answers that were given, there's still one problem. The problem is that we usually are supposed to do a mitzvah with natural ways, not through miracles, because God gave us the Torah on earth to change the natural world. With all the different answers to the question about the Chanukah, the nest of the jar of oil, remains one very strong question. So it comes out that they lit on Chanukah with miracle oil, but it's not natural oil. So how do we solve the problem? You're supposed to do a mitzvah in a natural way. So the Rebbe has an answer that will knock your socks off, if you have socks on, or will knock you off your chair. The Rebbe says that what happened, it remained natural oil. In other words, what really happened was the oil was natural oil, and the fire, in order for the wick to burn and to continue burning, it has to consume oil. So it consumed oil, and at the same time, the oil was the same oil. In Chinese, what happened was the impossible. Nature and supernature at the same time. As I mentioned, I believe in the previous Shiurim, that there was such a thing in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. In the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Torah says that the Aron, the Ark, the Holy Ark, had a very specific dimension of how long, how wide the Aron had to be. And it was supposed to be placed in this room called Kodesh HaKadoshim that had a exact measurement of how long the room is supposed to be. The room had to be 10 amos long, amos 18 inches. The room had to have 10 amos. The Holy Ark took up 2.5 amos in the length. You ready for this? At the same time that the ark was a physical ark, an ark that had specific dimensions. And at the same time, the ark did not take up space in that room. If you would measure from both sides of the ark, you had 5 amos on this side, 5 amos on that side. Well, maybe we're making a mistake. Again, let's measure the ark, 2.5 amos. Let's measure the root, 10 amas. Then measure now from both sides of the ark. You got 5 amas at the. So what is going on? It was a physical space, a physical box, and at the same time, it didn't take up space. That's what made the Kodesh HaKadoshim the Kodesh HaKadoshim. God, who has no limits, he could do the impossible. That was revealed in the Holy of Holies. That's exactly what happened with this jar of oil. It remained the original jar. And in order to burn, it had to consume oil. And at the same time, the same oil stayed. So this is really much deeper than we even imagined. Because according to all explanations, there are many different explanations that they divided the oil. Any different answer, it's still miraculous oil. It's not natural. The Rabbi says it was natural oil. And yet, it didn't get any less. It consumed the oil, and at the same time, the oil remained the same. This is something to think about. And we're now in Chanukah. We got to know what we have access on Chanukah. We can do the impossible. We have that strength. There's nothing impossible for a Yid. Nothing. And a lot of times we get to realize that Hashem is really asking us the impossible. So you might as well smell the coffee and understand it's true. He is asking us the impossible because we have the ability to act in that way because we're coming from Chanukah. And the whole idea of Chanukah is the impossible. In conclusion, my dear friends, when we talk about the Greek Syrians, it's not something in the past. Oh, once upon a time, there were Yavanim. We may have a little Yavam bug in our system. Just like, God forbid, there is corona, there is a Yavan infection or whatever, disease, whatever. When we always try to rationalize God, well, God did this because he did that. God is nothing to do with logic. He's not just, we don't understand him, but he got to have a reason, but we don't understand. That's a Yovan talk, a Yovan language. God is not in the first place have any connection to logic. He's the one who created logic. How can he be doing things because of a logic? He has to first create it. So we, in our own lives, we try to rationalize, and if we don't understand, we get upset. How could God do this and how could God do that? It doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense? When it does make sense, you got a problem. How can you figure out God when God is the creator of all, including logic? So we gotta take Chanukah and apply this to our lives to understand that the whole Yiddishkeit is really a commitment to a God who is infinite. And that's who we become connected to. A God that you could figure out you don't even want to be connected to. That's not God. And we have to always remember that we have to illuminate the dark world. not only aren't we supposed to become concerned about the dark world, we are the lamplighters. We are the ones who have to bring through Torah to illuminate the dark world and to illuminate the outside and to illuminate the left, because we have that strength. We have that from the Yontif of Chanukah. That God should bless all of us, all of the listeners, and all the people who maybe listen later. Chanukah is this incredible Yontif. It's about the fundamental principle of what is Yiddishkeit, what is Torah, what is mitzvahs. As I mentioned before in the previous class, all mitzvahs are chukim, not only the ones that we know of. When you really push comes to shove, all mitzvahs are chukim. Because even the mitzvahs that Hashem himself gives reason was never meant to be understood that that's the basis of why he gave us the commandment. He gave us the commandment because so he willed, beyond any explanation. But he also gave us, additional to the fact that so he willed, he also gave us certain mitzvahs with explanations, what it stands for, in order to involve our mind and our heart too. If we're only going to do it because we believe, but we cannot have any appreciation in our intellect, then we're not serving it with our intellect. We're not involving our intellect, we're not involving our emotions. So when the Torah gives reason, it's never to be understood that that was the cause of why Hashem gave the commandment. It works just the opposite. First, so he willed. And then he also gave rationale too. A freilich Chanukah to everyone. If anyone has any questions on anything we spoke today, please feel free to ask. Hello? No questions? Is anybody on tonight?
Rabbi Gurary.
Yeah.
I'm in a situation where I'm not, I'm not a committed, religious Jew, and I'm sort of embarrassed to light my candles in the window facing the community, because then I feel like a hypocrite. But I remember you told me there's no such thing as a hypocrite, but actually...
When you don't do a mitzvah, you're a hypocrite. When you do a mitzvah, that's who you really are. You're never a hypocrite. When you don't act like the Torah says, then you're a hypocrite. When you do what Hashem wants, that's what you really want. That's who you really are.
No, I am lighting the candles, but I'm lighting them on a desk in my living room.
What you should do is light it on the left post of your door.
I live in an apartment on the 3rd floor.
Okay, but I'm saying you're supposed to light it by your door. The right side is where the mezuzah is, and you light it on the left side of the post of the door.
Okay, that works.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Be blessed. Does anyone have